Hello, it's Kevin here again. After the week, I'm sorry it's taking such a long time to make videos these days, but many students on italki and I just don't have the time. Anyway, that being said, first things first, disclaimer caper, fair use teaching, blah 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 blah, okie doke, get that out of the way. So, what we're going to be looking at for today, Cambridge 14, test number 1. I think, yeah, test number 1, I think so. Okay, so this is one about, as you can see, average percentages in typical meals, 3 types of nutrients, salt, sugar, fat, okie doke. So that's what we're going to be having a look at. Now, one of the key things here for this one, which a few people were asking about, which I've seen, so we'll take a look at your writings in a second, and I'll show you my example is ordering of information, how to put this down. Now, I've chosen to do it in meals. So instead of introduction, overview, what's the biggest, what's the smallest, etc. And then some have done it in terms of the nutrients, so the salt and fat and sugar. I've done it in terms of meals, progressively, breakfast, lunch and dinner, because I thought that was a more obvious way to arrange this information. Now, you could do it in a different way. I just found it easier to just talk about, okay, the first meal of a day, which is breakfast, is the healthiest. The least healthy meal is the last one of the day, which is dinner. So to me, that made more sense, a logical arrangement. Yeah, so you got least unhealthy first at breakfast, lunch, and the most unhealthy meal is dinner at the end, because that's got 43% salt, 37% fat, So anyway, that's how I would and did order this, because I think that's more a logical arrangement. So take a look at mine at first. Okay, this is 198 words, so that's good. That is fine. So the pie charts illustrate average percentages of potentially harmful, if overconsumed, nutrients such as sodium, fat and sugar to be found in typical American meals. Okay, so paragraph 1 or sentence 1 or 2, introduction. Now, as I keep saying, overview, very important. Lots of you don't get it or don't do it correctly. What's the biggest, what's the smallest? So in terms of this one, what's the healthiest? What's the superlative? So I said here, breakfast, if we take a look at it, is the healthiest. It was about a fifth, was it 12, 13, 14% of salt, fat and sugar. So that's the healthiest. Then I move to the most unhealthy, or the unhealthiest. Yeah. So again, how can you logically arrange this information? And it does say highlight key trends and features. So usually, what's the biggest, what's the smallest? In this case, what's the healthiest, what's the unhealthiest? I thought that worked quite well. Starting with breakfast, easily the most nutritious meal of the day, as in less of salt, sugar and fat, etc. Moving through the day to lunch and dinner. Lunch was not as good, healthy, blah 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 blah. And dinner, as well as being the last, one most laden with unhealthy nutrients. Finally, looking at snacks, but by some margin. So these are the outlier. These are the ones with the most amount of sugar, because kind of snacks, it's probably biscuits and kind of crisps. Yeah. So you can see then how I've arranged this information in terms of what's the lightest, the least salty, fatty, sugary, moving on through the day, because as the day goes, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and snacks as the outlier. So that's how I would arrange that particular one. Now, you can probably see all that there. Yeah, you can just about see the whole thing on the screen. So I'll leave it there. 198 words. Okay, turn that off. Now, look at yours. Well, yours. So as I mentioned before, I've got my Telegram group, IELTS 9 Pro, and I take the first 5, I post a task. So we did Cambridge 17, 16 and 15. This is the first one of 14. Yeah? So I picked the first 5 and that's what we're going to comment upon in a second. Okay. So the pie charts represent the proportion. Hang on, just make sure I've got some changes on. The pie charts represent the proportion of sodium which the overuse of them. Overuse of them may threaten health. So the paraphrasing here could be a little better. But it's not for regular meals, because snacks, it's not a regular meal. That's why it's called a snack. 3 meals and snacks. So that paraphrase, that introduction, it's not quite as it could be. So what's the overview? Breakfast. Okay. Okay, right, so that overview, that's not bad. Okay. Breakfast is the least, largest is in the snacks. Sodium and fat are mainly consumed in dinner. So, okay. There are precisely equal amounts of the whole added sugar and saturated. Precisely equal amounts of the whole. Why is it whole? Of added sugar and saturated fats. Right. Which are used daily in the USA in breakfast. Quarter of fat is consumed. So right. A quarter of fat. What's the percentage? Is consumed in lunch. Sodium, sugar. 2 sodium can dinner sugar as much. Right. So this is only 170 words. So again, right, logical use of, layout of information. What's the sequencing? I think mine's better, really, because this one, it's only 170 words. It's not really laying things out. So the overview, the introduction could do with changing. The overview is not bad, but then you've got breakfast, precisely equal amounts used daily in breakfast. Then you've got 60. So you got what? So equal amounts of sugar and fat in breakfast, 16%. So what did it say? 60% respectively, 14%. Okay, and a quarter of fat. So okay, it's not too bad, but I would have changed it about a little bit, just to have a more logical sequencing. These charts provide information, I believe, on healthy materials for different meals. Yeah, but where? Some damages. Well, it's harmful, maybe, but where is it? Well, it's in America. So you have to make sure that you have all this information in your introduction. So fats, you don't need a comma after that. All material are used least on. So they've kind of done the same. They've gone from they've gone like unhealthiest to healthiest. I would have done it the other way around: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think that's a better arrangement. So sodium dinner by 40%, right, for lunch at second. So right. So what they've done then, kind of here, is they've gone from, so instead of me going breakfast, lunch and dinner, they've done sodium, fat and sugar. So if you do that though, there's a danger here, and it's not snacks, meal. It's not a meal, is it? It's simply snacks. If you do that, and you're jumping about, sodium is this, then it's not as logical or cohesive, I would say, as going through breakfast, lunch and dinner. But anyway, dinner and snacks. And also, now, I might not correct every single grammar point or spelling point, because there's 5 and I don't have the time. So why did you do 5%? Well, that for lunch. What? While the amount of sodium stood second? How does it stand? In dinner and snacks, into the same amount of 5%, shared a similar proportion. So it's not very clear, the phrasing of how it's been arranged. Okay, 188 words. Okay, not too bad. Even night meal, you mean in dinner, the night meal? The is sugar, so article, also eaten in lunch there. So that needs a bit of rewording also. And what do we have here? Figures illustrate the amounts of free nutrients exist in each meal in a day. Right, well, illustrate the amount of free nutrients that exist, are found, are present in each meal in a daily basis, on a daily basis, which could damage physical health by overconsumption. But where is it? Don't forget, it's in America. You have to put all this information in. Damage physical health by consuming too much. What do you mean by overconsumption? So what's the nutrients? What kind of meals? Where is it? America. That dinners have the most impact on the body, while the most harmless. Right. So that overview, it's kind of so. Introduction doesn't fully mention what is going on. The overview, a little short, and dinner have the most impact. Well, we're not making any kind of supposition here that it's having an impact. It said which could cause some kind of harm to health by overconsumption. So if you overconsume, was it fat, sugar, and salt, obesity, other things, yeah. So it's not having much. So I would maybe change that overview. Let us begin, or it can be seen, looking at the details of the first two meals people consume in a day: breakfast and snack. Breakfast and snack. Who says that that snack is the second meal of a day? The snacks are over the entire day. A biscuit here, a crisp there, I don't know, a piece of chocolate. So that's not strictly true. Breakfast with percentages which are the bottom of First, breakfast with percentages which are the bottom of the list. You mean the meal that contains the least amount of fat, sugar, and sodium. The proportion of sugar that exists in a snack, 3 times bigger than breakfast. Well, the proportion of soda is counted as the same amount of the breakfast, so that doesn't really tell me much. That's very vague. That's the fat in snacks. Just a bit higher is just a bit, or just a little, around 20. Right, so yeah, this needs a fair bit of work. 226 words, okay, but it's not very clear as to what is going on. Okay, how it's worded and phrased. I'm not going to rewrite this, like I say, don't have the time. Right, number 4. Given a free pie chart. Right, now, very good. Spot on introduction, right. Shows high percentage of southern substance. Okay, but key trends. So, what's the healthiest or lightest? What's the worst or kind of heaviest? So, breakfast is best, dinner is worst, and snacks have the most amount of sugar. So, usually, there's only 3 key trends or features, more or less, that you're expected to include in the overview. So it would make sense here, as I say, to put, breakfast is best, least harmful, blah, blah, blah. Dinner is worse because there's more, salty, sugary fat, but the highest amount of sugar, so what's the biggest, what's the smallest, etc. So that's not bad, but I would have mentioned the breakfast. According to the figures, dinner consists of roughly similar large proportions of essential form, respectively. Snacks contain trans fat. Okay, mentioned same at 60%. So this is just essentially just a mechanical recounting of the data. So that introduction is good. I would have mentioned breakfast in the overview, so you've got your 3 key trends and features. This is only 164 words. It's a little bit low for all the information and data to include. And this here is just every single bit of data that you could include, more or less. Approximately twice as much and 3 times as much. So that paragraph needs a little bit of extension. I would have broken that into 2, like in my sample, but still. Okay, let's see this final one then. Should just have time to finish this. 196 words. Pie charts compare the ingredients in American meals. That should be capitalized. Okay, including which all have harmful effects on the body if eaten too much. Good. Well, breakfast is the healthiest. Okay, that's good. Half of snacks. So you've got large proportion of these three. So does that mean that dinner is the unhealthiest? Well, yeah, so I would actually say so. Breakfast is best. So breakfast is best, dinner is worst, and snacks contain the most amount of sugar. That's it. That's what you need, really. Those three key ideas. Looking at the details, 50% of lunch contains sodium. So what they've done here then is the same thing. So now this is interesting, right? So I can't see the sort of point of like saying, okay, meals, right? Breakfast is best, dinner's worst. And then instead of looking at the meals, you instead go into the nutrients. So sodium's in this, then fats in this, and you know, how does that make sense? I would stick to what you've said in the overview. Breakfast, dinner, and then go through those, not jumping around. So the sodium, equal proportion, about fat, despite of two other factors, much less in comparison, because it just confuses people. Okay, so not too bad. One or two things that we could definitely change, though. Do I want that? No. And I'll just quickly, finally, show you mine for the final time. So, key things that we can say here. Right, make sure that your introduction covers all the information. It's American meals, right? It's the typical food meals eaten in America, and snacks, which is not a meal. Okay, overview. What's those key trends? As I say, and as some of you also have kind of done, breakfast best, dinner worst, snacks most for sugar. Something such as that. Then I say I would take that to the logical next step and say breakfast, moving on, lunch, dinner, one most laden, finally looking at the snacks, you know? So that's how I would arrange that one. And that gives it a logic. It's easy to read, especially for the examiner, easy for them to understand. They're not reading, jumping, sodium, fat, sugar, jumping up and down. It's nice and clear. It's a menu, it's a daily menu, essentially. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Do it in that way, and I think it's a lot easier for the examiner to read. Okay? So, I hope that helps. So, if you're not in my Telegram group, I'll put a link below. If you're not watching on YouTube, the channel link is also there. Or if you are watching, you don't need it because you're watching it. And I'll put my profile on italki if you need anything, if you want to get in touch. Right, so hope that helps. I'm going to post the next task in the Telegram group. That's going to be CAM 14 test number 2. I'm not sure what that is, can't remember. I'm going to post it now. Hope that helps, and I'll see you, hopefully, not in 7 or 8 days' time. I should try and do these a little more often, but so busy these days with my other things, projects and italki and students and all these other things. But anyway, I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next video.